and apart from it, that man was not meant to know. Horrors that lurk in the shadows of our everyday lives, and creeping things that flit between the fissures of the dreams that pass through our heads every night as we sleep. Throughout history, there have been those who have sought to uncover these secrets. And without exception, each of them has had their curiosity rewarded with death and madness. And the most unfortunate of them live a long life knowing that there are beings beyond this universe that consider mankind as insignificant as we consider insects. We're going to tell stories of some of these things this evening. And to do so, we'll need you to look within your own dreams and give us some strong images in which to call forth the madness.
Pyramids.
Pyramids.
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Lemmings.
Lemmings. Thank you. When the lights come up, 3 stories from the Black Vault.
Well, that's an interesting point, Professor, but how do you justify it?
Well, evidence is all there is. If we don't have it, we have nothing. We can make all kinds of conjecture about the nature of nature itself, but without evidence, it's just a guess.
What about faith?
Ah, I beg your pardon. Faith is not a path to truth. You can believe in 1,000 things, and without evidence, they're all true, or not.
Pardon him, Reverend. He's very much the rational man. Although I would point out that there's very little rationality. Can't man understand things with his own understanding? Must you always see something right in front of you, or can you extrapolate from the natural world?
It is just that. It is in our faith that we expand our understanding because we press on. We look for that knowledge, and then we grow in our faith.
Well, it's just this. Evidence seems compelling at the time, but for instance, even 2 years ago, doctors all said that if you wanted to avoid getting a cold, you shouldn't drink so much water. And now it's been proven that drinking water is actually healthy for you.
Well,
so even the mountain of evidence becomes nonsense. So why not cling to faith as an instrument to truth?
It is true. I think common sense, any rational man would have understood that water was actually good for you.
Science adjusts its view based on what we observe.
But
there is nothing to observe in faith.
And how did that do for the poor children during that time who were starved of water that would have helped their fevers go down?
Well, should we have prayed over them? Would that have helped them?
We did, and it did, I would say.
It did. And it didn't change my faith that I learned something wise and new. It didn't change how I saw the universe.
You seem irritated, Professor, and yet you invited 3 people of faith to come over to your house tonight.
Well, it is a matter of theology that needs to be discussed.
Oh? What matter is this?
Oh my!
That's a forgery. That's a fake.
That is what I thought first.
Oh, but it is beautiful.
Don't. I'm sorry.
If it is real, you shouldn't touch it.
No, it's not.
It's probably valuable.
I feel something that pulls me in it, though, doesn't it? Don't hurt.
Well, there's no scientific explanation for why it should pull you towards it, so therefore you don't. Right, Professor?
Well, we don't have the explanation yet, but this is the nature of science. We will eventually. And I'm fine with I don't know. It's a perfectly good answer to any question of life.
But in the meantime, if you don't know what stands in the place of not knowing, surely it must be rationality, like the rational man, or faith, like the religious man.
I understand this, that the item in the foreground is a pyramid, but who's that dark figure standing on top?
Oh, gentlemen, lady, you tell me.
That's Satan. That's the evil one himself.
I wouldn't think the evil one would be so small compared to a pyramid.
Well, it's perspective. If you were up on the pyramid, you might be quite large.
It looks like something from out of this world.
Could be something darker than Satan.
What's darker than...
Well, I do not want to put a dent in your theory, Reverend, but it was found on the island of Madagascar. Surely, nobody there has heard of Satan, especially at the age of this site.
Oh, this is reasonable. You must admit, Reverend, Madagascar is a very dark country and they know nothing of Christianity there.
I haven't been able to stop looking at it.
I know.
And if you're right,
Why would there be pyramids on Madagascar?
I had the exact same question.
I thought Madagascar was nothing but lemmings. I mean, lemurs.
And it does not look like the Mayan pyramids that I've studied so
Well,
so
that would be
often.
even more ridiculous.
Well, I will admit, I am stumped. With all my signs, with all the colleagues I asked, I have no answer.
And now you turn to faith.
and you come to us to seek what we know of history.
A scientific mind explores all avenues of knowledge.
Well, who is the figure on the pyramid?
Who is that?
The figure on the pyramid. I've spent my entire life as a man of luxury and decadence. My name is James Farnsworth, and I am an heir to a vast fortune. My father is a businessman in Boston and has sent me traveling the world to indulge my various proclivities. I'm telling you this not as an excuse, but as a warning. Even those who live within the world to its fullest extent can be victim to those without. I was vacationing in Italy with several friends of mine, drinking. It was 3 in the morning, and we'd spent all of our money on ouzo and women, and cheap cigarettes.
And that's when the vicar said, that's not my hand.
Charles, where did you learn such filthy stories?
Eaton! Oh, yes, you can always tell Eaton, man.
Charles was an old friend of mine from Boston. I went to school with him through grade school, high school, college, and afterwards. He was a filthy, filthy man, and I loved him dearly.
Oh, Kyle! He's posing!
Oh, don't frighten the natives, Charles.
The senorita's a little jumpy this evening. Come here, my sweet. Give us a kiss. Give us a kiss. What, in your cups already, old man?
In my bottles. Charles, you've been absent these last few weeks. What have you been doing with yourself?
Well, I'm glad you asked. You remember that merchant caravan I spoke that was going to North Africa?
Surely, Charles, you didn't invest in that merchant caravan.
Invested? Hell, I went along. Yes, oh, who would pass on the chance to see Morocco?
You were in Marrakesh.
I was.
Tell me all about it. What did you see?
Oh my goodness, I saw men in fezzes and monkeys in the same thing, and dates and figs and dusky women.
Dusky?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about the women, Charles.
Oh, the women. The first woman that I fell in love with in Marrakesh was named Fatima. And she had melons as far as the eye can see. She ran a fruit stand in the souk, you see. And she would tempt all the men around with her fresh goods. And I had eyes for her, let me tell you. But the second girl, Mira, she was homely as hell. Face like a donkey's arse, but she was the daughter of a pasha, you see.
A pasha?
Oh, indeed, yes, and I wooed her for her father's money. But he ran me out of town.
He ran you out of
It's not the first town he's been run out of.
Can't go back to Milan.
Neither of us can.
But then to Casablanca.
Oh.
I don't want to talk about Casablanca.
Why would I ever not?
What was her name? Did she break your heart?
When he said Casablanca, Charles's demeanor took a serious tone, one I hadn't seen in him since he was 8 years old and his father had found his dog bloated and covered with flies in the backyard. He loved the dog more than anything and spent hours weeping by its side. It's the only time I'd ever seen Charles like that since.
Forget I said it. No, of course, nothing.
No.
Tripoli.
Casablanca. Surely you can weave a tale of Casablanca for us.
I went to Casablanca not as part of the merchant caravan. Some of the locals in Marrakesh had told me of another Westerner, a professor who sought men of stout body and strong will to go with him to Casablanca for a archaeological expedition.
Oh, how very knowledgeable.
Oh, indeed, yes. Well, of course, being an educated man, I couldn't help but be overwhelmed with curiosity and thought I'd tag along.
I'll drink to that.
It was all very boring, a lot of dusting and digging, and you wouldn't be interested at all in what happened there. No.
I would have thought of you in your English tweeds amongst the natives,
Oh,
splashing about in the dust.
Well, you wear pith helmets, of course.
Of course.
One simply must dress.
You have a very striking figure, I'm sure.
Oh, of course.
Please paint an image of it for us, because I cannot imagine you doing physical work.
Oh, I did. I found the cornerstone of the damn thing.
The cornerstone.
Of what? The cornerstone of what?
Well, there are old buildings, of course.
Well, of course.
Buried under the sands of Morocco. Everyone knows this. Yes. But let me tell you what happened in Tripoli.
No.
Another drink for you until you tell us everything about Casablanca.
If I tell you, you must promise me on all of our years spent together, on the blood that we've shared, the sweat that we've sweat together, you will never go there.
Go to Casablanca?
Why would I want to?
Charles!
There are things in the dunes outside of Casablanca, things best left buried.
Oh.
I listened intently, but did not promise.
You see, the Professor Henriksen, sought an ancient ruin.
A ruin?
Yes, he had an old map, you see. He wouldn't tell me where he acquired it, and every time I asked, he changed the subject.
Did you think it was real?
A map? It certainly was a map. And it did indeed lead us somewhere.
So the professor was trying to build you money.
Yes.
You're familiar with the Great Pyramids of Giza?
Of course.
Yes. And you're familiar, of course, with the Mayan pyramids of the Yucatan?
Yes, of course.
Would it surprise you to know that other civilizations had raised pyramids long before the Egyptians or the Mayans ever got the idea?
I was unaware of them. How would they find the technology for it?
The pyramids of Giza date back over 5,000 years, but the stones that we found outside of Marrakesh, Casablanca I mean, were far, far older.
Impossible.
Man,
How could you even tell?
The professor's a genius. I wouldn't question anything that he says.
well, the idea that this stone is older than the oldest known civilization of man, it's ludicrous, isn't it?
It is not ludicrous at all.
Oh, Professor, we
It
were...
is as I have said. And so be it that we have found this cornerstone. This is the beginning, just the start. The earthquake unraveled parts that we did not see before. And I tell you, these markings mean something.
What does it mean, Professor?
I believe if we go further, deeper into Africa, we shall find more parts of the civilization that built this. There are others we must find. We are going to clean up here and move on. You should come, Charles. We could use your help.
Well, I'm always up for a journey, of course. But there's something about the figures carved into the stone that unsettled me. But more unsettling still was the wanton destruction that I saw around me. Of course, the only way that you could find the cornerstone of a pyramid first is if the whole thing had become upended.
The professor says that strange things destroyed civilizations in the past, that what we think of as seismic shifting or climate change were actually much darker forces. The professor says we shouldn't be scared, but at night sometimes I'm scared.
Get a hold of yourself, man! Get a hold of yourself! Are you a man of science or not? But still, when I looked at the ruins, I was brought to think of the Parthenon and the way it had been blown apart.
Get a hold of yourself! Get a hold of yourself!
You don't understand. There's no gunpowder back then. There's no technology of any kind. What could destroy such a structure?
You're spinning so many fanciful stories. An entire stone pyramid built and destroyed before man walked in Europe.
Charles, you don't have malaria, do you?
No, although we did press deep into the Congo.
Into the Congo in Africa.
Professor Henriksen and I and his bizarre aide pressed deeper and deeper into the bush, and we found what Henriksen was looking for. Don't you see? We found it! We found the evidence of... I am not drunk. Well, I am drunk, but this is still true. We found the evidence he was looking for. We found stones. We found figures. And each one was darker than the last.
Charles, I will wager $5,000 of my father's money that your story is complete poppycock.
Poppycock! Poppycock, you say?
We will get on a boat, cross the Mediterranean tomorrow, and you will show me exactly what you're talking about.
Ah, very well. We shall go to Morocco.
An adventure!
We're off on the road to Morocco.
I shall pack the port.
The journey across the Mediterranean was longer than we had expected, especially given our states the next morning. But with a few greased palms and empty pockets of mine, we secured safe passage and eventually made it to the northern shore of Morocco. From there on, we hired some guides to lead us south, first along well-traveled roads, and then into the desert, where Charles became more and more inebriated as he approached the dreadful sights.
It's damn hot here.
We can still turn back.
Charles,
We can still turn back. We can still stay away from it. God damn it! Stay away from it.
I've never been one to dissuade you from drink, Charles, but really, this is not the place or time.
Sir, if I may speak, this one,
Of course.
you dishonor our traditions.
Charles, you're dishonoring us.
Ah! Damn Mohammedans and their outlawing of alcohol.
Please, Charles.
We don't pay you for traditions, we pay you to bear our burdens.
I'm very, very sorry.
Do so in silence, please.
Might
So
I
damn hot.
Might I offer as well, sir, that should you indulge quite a lot in alcohol in these hot temperatures, you dangerously come close to death.
Good.
Good. Why would you wish to die, Charles?
There are things that await us that are far worse. Far worse.
Listen, Ascot, are there things that are terrible, terrible things, old things in the desert? Please.
You have been asked to us to be shown by my husband and myself.
Of course, but this
Certainly
is
you must know. You do not go ignorant into the sands.
I'm afraid we very much do.
Take your money.
What?
I will not be privy to this.
Here now. We've paid you to do a job, and you will do it.
I do not take men to their death if they do not know where they are going.
That's why we hired guides.
You wouldn't leave us here.
You've come so far already.
I'll take you.
Here now.
A strange, shriveled man appeared, as if from nowhere. His skin brown and cracked, like an alligator's.
I know that I have aged some since even last we met.
My God, man, what's happened to
Do
you?
not be frightened.
You know this man, Charles.
Yes, it's the aide of Professor Henderson.
Best not to touch me.
This peculiar little homunculus is a man.
All right, there's no need to be rude.
Good God.
Akbar, you would take these ignorants?
Of course I would. Although they're ignorant in our ways, they might be able to help the professor.
Noble Akbar! Admirable Akbar! Such a good man! Yes, he will take us!
Noble Akbar.
The professor is still here.
In a manner of speaking,
Well, that's intriguing.
Is he in the ruins?
in a manner of speaking,
In all my years of travel and debauchery, I'd seen many things that normal sheltered people have never seen. I'd traveled in the alleys and sewers and back rooms of every dank and dusty and degraded house of ill repute. But never had I seen in the eyes such loss, such wanting, such desolation as in the eyes of this small man, and I knew that I must follow to see and experience that which no one else had.
if my sour visage turns your stomach, then perhaps you will want to turn back. Follow me, walk with me, or else you'll fall behind.
You hear it, don't you, Akbar? You hear it?
Of course, the drumming. I've always heard it.
So hypnotic. It calls to us, doesn't it? They call to us.
He calls to us.
He calls.
You!
The professor.
Oh, good.
Oh, brother. Are we there yet?
Just a little further.
This is
With his incessant drums.
harder and longer than I expected.
He stands.
Bala. Otala.
Otala!
Motala! Motala, good God,
I heard from across the dunes, wafting in the hot winds, a noise sounding like human speech, but of no tongue that I had ever heard nor read of.
It is he!
It was he, the professor, whose voice had transformed into an instrument of evil.
Bala. Ota.
He calls us. He calls us.
What language is this that you're speaking, Charles?
Steward. How do you understand his speech?
Make
Do you not? Do you not understand a speech that was old when the world was young?
When someone speaks the oldest tongue, we all understand.
I heard in my head, through my ears, the words made no sense, but in my mind, they made perfect sense.
Atala Magala.
Atala, Akla, Sanata.
Sanata.
I knew in my mind they translated no English words, but the meaning was as clear as
It is done.
in the sands, rising above.
Sands.
It seemed at first a mirage, for nothing that black and shapeless, and yet crystal clear, could exist. But there it was, rising, somehow touching the sky, but a part of the earth at the same time.
You wanted to come here. You wanted to see this.
And now you see why I say he's here in a manner of speaking. For atop that black monolith, atop that pyramid, the professor stands, feet turned to stone, arms and limbs turned to ancient dust, and yet his eyes burn alive, and his voice still speaks to me.
His body had merged with the stone, and his voice resonated as though the entire structure was pumping air through his vocal cords and into the world below. And I heard the words, Atala, Akla, Samata. And before the true meaning could penetrate my soul, it must have been the heat. But I lost consciousness and knew no more.
Wake up! Wake up!
When I awoke, we could see the ocean. We had been transported back north. I did not know where, but...
Are you gentlemen well? Who've been most worried?
I don't know. We were charmed. We were in the desert. Something changed.
Changed? We found you in a cart just outside of the village. We took the liberty of liberating your wallets of some currency. You've been here these past 3 days.
3 days?
Quite unconscious, I assure you.
Oh, the one with no hair rises.
Charles. I saw him.
Well, I'll just leave you to recover then.
And as I looked into the dead, insensate eyes of my old friend, I knew that his mind was gone, left out there in the sands. And as I listened to the waves of the Mediterranean roll back and forth, they spoke to me in a language that was older than mankind. And I knew that those words would pull me back to that unclean place. And at last, the only thing that was reasonable, the one thing that I had not yet experienced, was the sweet release. Death. I hope that when I go, the voices will not follow.
Yes, there are dozens of myths concerning pyramids. The Vladnichi of Central Croatia, the Genyosha of Tokyo, the ziggurats of Babylon. Pyramids are easy to build. It's science. You start with a big block and then you put another block and then it follows.
But you must admit that the story does bear some resemblance to the image we see before us now. A man standing alone, dark on a pyramid.
This frame is made of mahogany.
Don't touch it. You keep wanting to touch it.
The patina is
Don't touch it.
that color, that hue.
What would you call that? Brown? Blue?
No. I would call it
Cerulean?
I can't place it. It's unnameable.
Well,
If something's worth like $1 million, you don't want to touch it and ruin it.
Through my magnifying glass. I'm not
I do not want to worry you, but we touched it a lot while we tried to figure out what it was.
I'm just saying.
We literally touched every inch of it.
I just think that as your guest, you shouldn't mess with your things.
Well, that is very courteous.
Did you feel anything when you touched it?
It's a kind of waxy structure to it that is not what you would expect looking at it.
I was referring to your internal condition. Not the condition of the painting.
Why don't I just touch the painting and smear some of the paint off?
Touch
was not. That was being sarcastic. But you can see the reason I brought up that story, Professor, was to show you that faith isn't just a tool of the ignorant. Faith also means believing bad things. Faith that Satan exists. Faith that evil is punished and that we are all made imperfect in the flesh from the moment we're born. I have faith that there's a good chance I'll go to hell when I die. And if that's true, then the man on the pyramid and that myth, as you call it, could very well be true. An element of hell bubbled up to the surface of humankind.
And from that evil, we get blood. The blood that is not patina.
What are you on about?
The flame.
I think he's right.
It's made and painted in blood.
I hate to say it, he is right. We tested it.
You knew this? Why didn't you tell us this?
Well, I didn't want to. I
touched that.
Bias your ratings.
Touch it! Oh, it's not a Van Gogh. That was my theory.
It's not a Van Gogh. It's something much more evil in the art world.
It's something evil in the art world?
Demonic.
Something evil in the art world. My name is Melody Christensen, and you may think it odd that a woman of such breeding and fine stock would be at this point in her life contemplating the multitudinous drugs that will take her out of it. But bear with me, for I have a tale to tell you almost too horrible to tell. It is as though words cannot describe the full import of what has occurred to me over the past 3 months. 3 months, yes. From a happy young woman on the brink of a marriage that would suit her so well, to the contemplation of a suicide. And yet, these 3 months, they have stretched into infinity, because where I have spent most of these 3 months has not been in the world as you know it, but has been somewhere much farther off. My fiancé, Jacob, came to see me that last day of my wellness.
And of course, all of the arrangements are made for a grand tour of Europe to follow the ceremony.
Jacob, and my father is helping with the money, yes?
Mr. Christensen keeps offering. I keep putting him off.
Oh, it would mean so much to him.
But I have standing. I have a great potential of earnings, they tell me at the brokerage.
Yes, you do, darling.
And it's just a simple matter of borrowing against that for today, for the trip that we take now.
But Father, I fear soon he is not well, Jacob, and soon he shall be dead. And this would mean so much to send me off into your arms, because he loves you well as well.
All right, Melanie, you make compelling arguments.
Thank you.
I'll meet with him tonight. All right, I'm back at the brokerage until 7, but I shall meet you and your father then.
Thank you, Jacob. I smiled as I watched him walk off, his handsome figure striking such joy into my heart. And I entered the study where Father I knew would meet me later. And I grew somewhat trepidatious, for well I loved my father all my life, and yet there was something strange and unnatural about how he was passing so quickly from this world. And when he came in and took his chair, I could see
May I get you anything, sir?
I will have a gin and tonic, please, and she will have
What would you like?
You pick for me, Father. You're always good at that.
Veuve Clicquot, I think. We will have champagne. Thank you very much.
Father,
Yes, Pumpkin.
Jacob has agreed to let you pay for part of the wedding.
I hope he didn't take it too hard. I know he was planning on trying to do this all on his own.
He's a good man, Father.
Yes, yes he is. I think you have found the love of your life. I only wish your mother was still alive to be here to see it.
Yes, I do too. Mother had passed many years before of a strange plague that infected all who walked out in the middle of the night one strange evening just outside of Arkham, Massachusetts.
Ah, yes. We will use the good crystal for this. Yes. Please go ahead. Oh, Hans.
Thank you, Max.
Why don't you take the rest of the evening off? Very well, sir. Thank you. You're very welcome. You've deserved it. I want you all to myself tonight.
Daddy.
Soon you won't be my little girl any longer. You'll be a married woman that carries about it certain responsibilities. Are you aware of everything you need to be aware of?
Father, don't worry yourself.
Oh, thank God. I have been worried about that for the last month. I couldn't throw money at that, for sure.
I'm at university, Father. They teach us many things.
I think they teach you too much sometimes. Don't forget the job of a lady is to make sure her husband reaches his full potential.
I will stand by Jacob as Mom stood by you. The greatest support that you had. Father,
I'm sorry.
I am sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I miss her very much, and I wish for her guidance. When a little girl and my little girl is moving off into the world so fast, it seems only yesterday that you were bumbling across the heathers.
As he smiled fondly at me, perhaps it was the champagne, or perhaps it was the emotion at having my wedding coming up and him so unwell, but I fell to the ground in a faint.
Pumpkin! Pumpkin, are you all right? Hillhouse! Janet! Pumpkin!
Father faded, and I suppose I did too. For I seemed to open my eyes, and all around me, things were as they had been, but not. There were somehow different angles added to everything. It was as though there were many places to hide, that had suddenly come creeping out of the familiar shadows and shapes in the study. And I felt moving underneath me the ground, and as though the floor of the study, the floor of the house had suddenly become insubstantial and was pulling me deeply, further into the earth. And I closed my eyes for a moment and opened them again, and I was in a far desert. It was somehow familiar to me, as though I had been there many years before, and I looked off into the distance and saw, marching over the far hills, a herd of creatures, one following the other, insensate, walking as though to something specific, but there was nothing there. And I stood, but they all came further and further towards me. They were unlike anything I'd seen on Earth. They had fur on them. They were like mounds of fur so high, with one gleaming eye in the center. Many tentacled arms coming from the top. and tentacles as feet. They walked around me in a circle, and I knew I was their mother. I had given birth to this, and they were beautiful to me, and I felt them around me, holding me, touching me, like they were the ones who loved me most in the world. And I felt, though horrified at my core, somewhere, like those strange angles that had come out of the study, there was more to me. And in this moreness of myself, there was a joy and a fulfillment that I never had felt, not even the tenderest of moments with my dear fiancé. I breathed in, and purely happy for just one moment, and then all went black again.
Pumpkin, wake up!
Darling!
She's fainted! Jacob, help me get her up!
Of course.
So, is everything all right? Can you bring me some ice, please? Some ice and some cold water, immediately. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Pumpkin, oh, you're right. I think it's the anxiety of the moment approaching.
Oh,
I broke the glass.
Oh, don't worry about that. You must... Here. Let you drink this. Drink this. Do you have a cloth? Yes, right. Give me a handkerchief. Thank you. Put this ice on the back of your neck. Do you feel better?
Should I send for the doctor, sir?
No. Wait a moment.
And in a few moments of my waking, I remembered, with a degree of disappointment, where I actually was, and whom I was supposed to love. Father.
Yes.
Jacob.
darling.
I know you.
Well,
I am sorry. I did not feel myself. When I first woke up, it was such a strange dream I did have.
Oh dear.
here, sit down. Yes. Did you have a dream?
I did. It was nothing to speak of, really. And Father and I spoke through the night. And Jacob was there, and we spoke of the wedding and things that were all of a sudden rather trivial in my mind. And I felt like a bad daughter and a worse fiancée, but all that took my mind in that evening was getting back to that strange and compelling world from which I had been ripped so quickly. Father, Jacob, I do wish to retire. I apologize.
Yes, of course.
The strain of the evening must be very taking its toll.
Thank you, manners. Thank you.
I will make your room, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Jacob, we will speak on the morrow.
Of course.
Yes. I will leave you two alone. Good night.
Thank you, Father.
I shall retire to my rooms in Somerville unless you feel I should stay closer by.
Father would not mind if you did take the guest room. It is what it is there for, after all.
Then I shall do that. I'll notify my people immediately.
Thank you, dear.
Of course, darling.
In my room. Made up my bed. Manners could never do it quite right.
Is everything to your liking, madam?
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there anything else you need?
No, just sleep.
I will stay up a few more hours and sit by your door, madam.
Oh, there's no need for that.
Very well.
Do take your rest. I know Tabitha waits for you in the servants' quarters. I did not like anyone disturbing my slumber again. This was a sacred place for me now. Though I'd only been there once, the land called me back. It was as though the rafters sung that sound, this song that had been echoing through the land. I laid down upon my bed without a thought of all those cares that I had had only hours before, just seeking to return. This time slowly, my eyes opened, and I realized the creatures I saw before were just children. Here, they had grown to full magnificence. They moved much more slowly, but they were entranced with me as I with them. And they sang the most beautiful song. It was deep from the bowels of the earth. It had made me tremble. That part of me which still held on to the waking world and still had some modicum of sanity about it, screamed for me to wake up. But that voice was so far away, and the new silence in my head that resonated with their voices felt a deep, dark power it had never felt before. I was resonating with the spheres that went beyond the earth where I spent my life, my meaningless life to that point. I felt their strange appendages. They had mouths on the end of them with small purple teeth, and they reached and grabbed at my flesh, and they took my flesh from me, everything that tied me to the world in which I lived. And they were bringing me home at last, the home where I'd never been before and so desperately longed to stay. And I was coming to them, coming home, and the light became brighter and brighter. And the sounds of their song, their beautiful song, were transferred into the hideous call of the morning lark.
Pumpkin, wake up! Wake up! Doctor?
Well,
She's been like this every night. She goes to sleep, and when she wakes up, she's drawn these.
quite a creative mind your daughter has. I have not seen the like of this.
As they looked at my pictures of my beauties, my home, my family, my flesh, I looked at this plump skin, this thing that graced my bones, and I felt how horrible it was. And I looked at that same hanging on my father's bones, on the doctor's bones, and I was filled with a repulsion. The smells that came forth from them, that issued into my nostrils, that filled my being, made me scream inside. And I looked upon them with a hatred and with disgust.
Pumpkin, what is it?
Ugh!
What is it, Pumpkin? What do you see? Doctor, there's nothing we can do for her medically.
Sir, I think drawing her dreams will help her eventually. You know what they say, there is no evil in art.
These are the drawings of a mad woman.
Well, I can prescribe some drugs, but it will change her probably more than you would like.
Can't we start off with a small dose? Pardon me, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
A small dose. Anything that can help her. Please, I beg of you.
Well, if you give her 2 of these, each morning and each evening, it will surely dull her senses and probably also her creativity. It is not something I would, in all honesty,
These moments of lucidity occasionally came upon me, and sometimes the touch of a human would make me that part of me that was still alive somewhere deep inside.
Here, take the pills.
Daddy?
Yes, sweetheart.
Daddy, where did you go?
Well, I'm right here, Pumpkin.
Daddy?
Take the pills.
Daddy,
Take them.
you've been away for so long.
No,
Daddy, I'm so scared.
Take the pills, Pumpkin. Please.
Daddy, there were monsters.
No, we'll take the monsters away. Take the pills. Here, drink this. That's a good girl. Now, sleep, Angel. Sleep.
Little did they know that the cure was a cure for that world. I didn't even feel myself go to sleep. After a while, it was so easy to slip back to my beloveds. And I felt more and more, the more their song came to me, the more I sang their song with them. The more the old melted away from me, the more I was living in this new and beautiful place. And every visit back into that old world was meaningless. Every hour I spent away from my family, away from my loves, was an eternity. I loved them so much, and I felt so much as though this is what I was supposed to be, not a human, something from beyond. And I saw these strange angles, and I floated into space, and I was one with them, and they pulled me up, and they made me more than they. And I would never go back, never go back to that place, to that hated place. And then, no, just yesterday I woke up. For the last time.
I'm afraid there's nothing for it. If Melanie, if you're still having these conditions, then
We must sign the commitment papers. Yes.
No, I was going to say delay the matrimony indefinitely. But if you're going a step beyond that...
Jacob, I'm afraid it's the only thing for it at the moment. She needs proper care and she needs to be watched 24 hours a day.
My family.
Yes.
I need my family. I need my father, my mother, and my... Don't touch me!
Just do it.
Jacob.
I can't get there. I can't get there. I can't get there with this on me. I can't get there with this on me. I can't get there with this on me!
Give us something!
No! Don't take me away!
Gentlemen, I must ask you to be quiet if you would visit her in her rooms. As you can see, she's not screaming, so she is much improved.
May we approach her?
I wouldn't recommend it. The slightest touch sends her into a frenzy, regardless of the dosage.
For God's sakes, is the medicine doing nothing?
If it's any consolation, gentlemen, there is a ray of some hope. As the doctor so advised the very first day he visited her, he's been giving her a sketchbook to draw what creatures she sees in her dreams.
May we see this sketchbook?
Of course you may, but you don't need to look at the pages of the book, for it's on display in the main hall. It's fascinating. The orderlies, the doctors, the patients alike all seem strangely fascinated by the artwork. She draws creatures beyond the imagination of any sane man or insane. She may have lost something in the ability to communicate with the real world, but she's gained so much in the creative powers. It's not much to hold on to, I realize. I can see by your faces you're not as excited about it. But it is something, isn't it? A ray of hope in an otherwise bleak world?
Will I get my daughter back, Doctor? That's what I want to know.
Can you do anything for her?
I'm afraid not. But some of her will live on in the work she made.
Tonight I will drink the ink from the pens. Tonight I will drink the paint. Tonight I will put it on a paper and tell them
And that, of course, is an avenue we also try to walk. Is it a dream, just an imagination brought into stone? Why not? People experimented with all kinds of visions.
But something this old, art wasn't creative or fanciful back then. It was instructive,
They
wasn't
didn't
it?
even have perspective, and yet look at this. It's amazing.
If I could believe it was the creation of someone insane 10,000 years ago, then maybe I could sleep easier.
Professor, the second one that you asked for.
Thank you, thank you.
There's another one? Don't touch this one!
Hear me out. We found this in a wreck at the beach of Mexico.
Nowhere near
It
this
looks
one.
so similar.
How is that possible? How can they be exactly the same dimensional, architecturally, and the same?
Even the frame is made of mahogany. There's no mahogany in it.
The last time you touched the other frame, it was made of blood! Okay!
Pointing at it.
If you would... I'm sorry, I'm getting so worked up. In the Bible,
It does draw.
there is the flood.
There is the flood.
And every civilization echoes that same belief. Faith has long taught us that the entire earth was flooded, and science has borne that out, has it not?
Yes, this is true. The Grand Canyons are obviously rivulets through which the waters flowed at one time, carrying all sorts of ideas.
Well put.
It's rational. It's only rational.
Compelling.
If you've come to us, or we've come to you, at your behest, to provide some sort of answer, then the only answer I can provide is this. If this has some bearing in faith and the ways of the world and man and God, then surely it's a depiction of evil, and both of these creations should be burned and destroyed.
Do you not think that by destroying them we might create something even more evil? Sometimes don't artifacts, when it's chemically understood that when an artifact is
I'm very interested in this.
introduced to heat, to the element of heat, sometimes that releases other noxious chemicals which then can become poisonous to those around.
Yeah.
Well, I would just like to invoke a religious man. Have you heard of Occam? Occam's razor?
Yes.
So, should I believe, A, that this is the work of culture-spanning, evil civilizations that have somehow brought together an image impossible to do at that age, or maybe it is a forgery so clever, so well made, that it defies scientific inquiry?
I don't know which of those is the more obvious. Arkham's razor would tell us that these two things are exactly what they seem to be. And evil things painted in blood that draw us evilly towards them. We should burn them and destroy them, and to hell with the consequences.
To hell with the consequences. I was shaken by this meeting of learned men and women of faith. I was shaken to the core, for their explanations were just as well studied as were mine. And after we dispersed, all of us wondering what was the secret behind these graven images, I felt compelled to get to the bottom of it. But before I tell you what happened after we dispersed, I have to convey to you 2 instances that happened in my life to make sense of it all. The first one happened when I was back at university. On my way to the hill of Arkham University, where students would gather to watch the stars through their telescopes, I got lost in the dark. I walked through the city and came upon a weird sight. Forgotten were my colleagues on the hill. I couldn't care less about stars at that moment. It was a sight so weird and strange that it shook me. For it was a number of what I can only describe as misshapen, homeless people with visages dirty and wrinkled, disfigured by scars. They had gathered around a rude construction in their middle that was on fire. And while they were dancing around it in a weird, orchestrated lockstep, a dance that defies any ballroom rules. From time to time, they would raise their hands to the stars and chant one word over and over again. I could make no sense of it, but I watched as more and more of them congregated, and it got more and more frantic. Their dance. Like a whirlwind, they danced like mad dervishes. They circled their idol. Until finally, one, with a shriek, threw himself on the flames and perished. I flew in horror. I went back to the dormitory and spoke to no one of this, for I knew the place of science and learning. Surely nobody would believe my ramblings, and it could only damage my reputation. I stored this away as a nightmarish vision, as a fever dream, a daydream I had while too stressed out about the finals. And I didn't think about it until 4 years later, a circus was traveling through Arkham. A freak show accompanied it, and more pushed by my friends, we entered the freak show and saw several ungainly and very gross sights. Come on, all of this is fake, you know it. It's not.
It's so frightening.
Fake or not, it'll be fun, huh?
The conjoined twins, you can see they're just wearing one suit.
True enough, true enough.
And then the monkey man, they glue fur to him.
Yes, but is he a monkey disguised as a man or a man disguised as a monkey? We don't know.
I cannot believe we spent 25 cents on this.
Hold on, there.
Well, to be fair, you actually paid for me. Thank you very much.
Hey, what did you pay for me?
A reason you will find out one day. I want to see that jellyfish now. They said it's big as a boat.
She holds her hand out to me.
Don't touch them. They're filthy.
You won!
Wait! Let's go! When we entered the last exhibit, which was titled Bigo. I had a weird feeling of dread and foreboding. And what we saw was either a clever trick, a chicanery of the mind, or it was the true thing. For what we saw was in shape a jellyfish, but made out of human bodies, joined together, fused like dripping wax had been poured over them. And it was alive, it was pulsating. It had too many mouths, too many eyes, too many hands groping at us. And it was almost unbearable to look at the horror that it was.
Oh, this is not fun anymore.
I know we shouldn't have.
Sarge, I normally have a stronger concentration.
Don't go near it.
The way it waved its arms, the way it undulated reminded me of that evening back in Arkham, where the decrepit, misshapen horde had danced around a foreign idol. Neo! What was that?
Negro!
Get up! This is horrid. Oh, I don't want to stay any longer. It's almost painful to watch.
Definitely worth 25 cents.
Let's go and get some cotton candy.
Will you pay for that also?
Of course. Lydia and I never got married. She ended up marrying James. His fainting for her seemed to be a sign of an erudite mind, more in touch with the inner self. So I threw myself at science. And again, in my mind, the horrible, horrible memory vanished. That misshapen thing, not from this world. And with these 2 episodes, I will begin my tale. 4, to figure out the secret of the engraven images. I traveled to South America, where I had heard from colleagues that deep in the Brazilian jungle, colleagues of mine had unearthed similar artifacts. And as you can imagine, travel was more than adventurous, and I was glad that I arrived at camp with all my limbs intact, all my belongings still on my body, and all my scientific equipment still in one piece.
Professor, everything's in order and unpacked just the way you like it.
Thank you, Franklin. Have you seen any sign of Professor Henriksen?
Henriksen, he was due in today, yes, but I haven't seen him quite yet.
I would like to have words with him as fast as possible.
Excellent, Professor, yes.
Have there been any discoveries lately? Anything that I should ask him about? You know how he likes to be, have his ego stroked.
He's been strangely quiet, as if maybe he hasn't discovered anything, or maybe he's discovered something so big he would only tell you in person.
Well, his letter was most cryptic.
It was quite, Professor, it was quite. As soon as he comes in, I will send it.
I settled in my tent and pondered the last time I had seen Henriksen, all aglow with the opportunity to go on a well-funded mission to South America. Well, congratulations, Henriksen. I heard all the funds were appropriated.
Well, we have everything we need.
I think you'll be gone for a year or 2 if I read the numbers right.
If I have done it correctly, we have a 3-year trip planned.
Ah.
South America, and if all goes right, I think I shall find myself in darkest Africa as well.
I wish I could be in your shoes, old friend. I'm struggling to get something together for a trip to California. And they say I'm crazy and it isn't worth the effort. What did you do? How did you convince them?
I swear there are more pyramids on this planet than anyone has ever... Sorry.
Well, good travels. And Godspeed.
I will send you more letters as I go.
Please do that.
Keep your promise.
So, I was very much shaken to see this vibrant man, this healthy, fit man, reduced to a shade of his former self when he finally came to my tent. Jesus Christ.
You wanted to see me.
Henriksen, it's me. You look horrible. Is it some jungle fever, something that you caught here?
No, I found so much of what I've looked for. It's taken its toll.
I will take your word for it.
Do you mind if I sit?
I read your letter with great interest. It seems like all your dreams have come true.
Back in South America, yes. It's just what I thought. The pieces are falling in place, but my time here is short.
What do you mean? Oh, your tenure is running out? That is,
No, my funding, that is not of what I speak. At this moment, this moment of my life, there is an evil about that is calling.
I looked into his eyes as he spoke, for I knew he was a man of science, more rational even than I, more skeptical than anyone I knew. Yet when I saw his face, I saw despair. I saw a crisis of immense magnitude, and I was very, very worried. Good friend, what have you found? In your letter you wrote about an etching in stone, and I thought maybe it would be something that my own studies have.
There is an evil so old, so... It is something I should not speak, but it is everywhere. It permeates every culture. Every culture has this evil that transcends everything. It goes back in time. It pulls us forward. It kills everything it touches. It wants us.
Henriksen, calm yourself.
I'm sorry.
Professor, is everything okay?
Would you take me to my tent?
Certainly.
I spent the night in dread, the jungle noises around me unfamiliar, and I pondered what I had seen. I pondered what could have shaken Henriksen to the core, remembering my own irritation at the riddle that the graven images presented. I could only think of worse things to come. Next morning, I saw no sign of the professor, but Franklin, his assistant, invited me to take a tour of the dig.
Professor Henriksen is not well, but I could show you all the work that's been done so far.
Very worried. Fine, yes, please.
This is the entrance.
The entrance to what?
I'm not really at liberty to say.
Well, speak up, man. I traveled a few thousand miles for this.
We found a chamber. He went inside. He would not tell me what was in it. When he came out, he was not well.
Well, have you been in it?
I dare not look.
I think you'll find this interesting. It appears there's a mosaic pattern upon all the flooring that we've uncovered so far.
We've been focusing on the exterior.
I can't identify the stone. It's got these flecks of orange against a purple background, and the light that hits it shimmers and changes.
I call it blue or brown, but I couldn't be sure.
My father often told me that my curiosity would get the better of me one time. I saw it at the time as a compliment to my scientific career, but now I know what he meant. For I should have stayed out of things that were not meant for humans to discover. But I just couldn't. Franklin, if
I'm not sure it's safe to go inside.
I will be the judge of that. I haven't traveled this far. Now just to turn back, and I will not be scared by some whatever.
You are the legendary Professor Krieg of archaeology extraordinaire.
The Professor Krieg?
It is.
The legendary Professor Krieg?
Yes, indeed. So you will understand my curiosity and my eagerness to discover the secret of this room, even if it is only to see what happened to poor Henriksen. Is there a lamp? Is there a lantern?
Of course, of course.
We're big fans of your work.
Well, thank you.
Love the chicken eats up dig.
You read about it?
Yeah.
I didn't think it would reach you here in the middle of nowhere. This is fantastic. What do you think of my footnotes? Are they too long? Be honest.
No, not long enough, man.
Senor, you are not thinking of going there.
This woman, she keeps bothering us with the dig. I told you, go away.
It's bad in there. It's bad in there.
It's the locals. They know nothing.
You go in there, you wake it up, you bring it out again.
What?
Bring it out.
What?
I cannot name it. It will hear.
Oh, it's some local superstition. It's all nonsense.
It is not nonsense.
He's Professor Green.
Take my family and leave here. You bring your own doom.
Well,
It's been trouble ever since we got there, ever since we've opened up this particular section.
Well, I will tell you this. There doesn't seem to be a dig anywhere in the world without a local warning us.
I know you correlated that in your footnotes.
I was called crazy and it was called unscientific at the time. There's evidence for this.
You listed at least 30 separate instances in different rural parts around the world where locals warned you against going into the dig sites.
Well, I will say this. Let's take precautions. Give me that rope. I will tie it around my waist, and if I don't come out in, let's say, an hour, you will just pull me up.
That seems simple enough.
Just tug on the rope.
The mosaic on the floor was of intricate quality. It depicted the usual South American deities, feathered snakes, jaguars. But the deeper I went, the more strange the figures became. First, animal hybrids that didn't make any sense to me in my archaeological knowledge. Then finally shapes of unspecified form. And again I felt a dread I hadn't felt in years. And certain images came back to me. Until finally I entered the subterranean chamber, which was splendid in its ornament. The colors vivid as if they had been painted just the day before. The mosaic spanned the walls and showed scenes from times eons past. I saw and recognized plants that now we find only in the deepest strata of archaeological findings. Plants long extinct. And I wandered in the splendor until finally I saw the one big centerpiece of it all. A misshapen lump with too many eyes, too many mouths, and too many limbs. And all my memory rushed back to me. Bigo! I knew it was just an image. But I knew from my experience as an archaeologist and anthropologist that all of these images have some seed of truth. All gods are based on a seed of truth. Folk who live in the ice, their gods are made from ice. Formed after their own images. So I was wondering, which shape was this? What congregation had made this mosaic? What was the seed of truth in it? Suddenly I was pulled back violently. An hour had passed without my knowing, and the three assistants had pulled vigorously, and I shot out of the chamber. Sorry, Professor, an hour had passed. I wasn't even aware.
The rope was limp. We were afraid of everything.
It's true. Everything.
All-encompassing fear.
I'm afraid
dig of each other or pulling you in or not pulling you in?
Seized us most terribly.
I only seized up and tilted backwards, starting your momentum back towards
I
us.
applaud your scientific rigor.
I'm still afraid right now.
Step out of
Franklin! Franklin! I want to talk to the locals. I want to talk to the natives.
Don't do it, it's nonsense.
No.
They curse us.
If you had seen
They
what...
hate us.
I don't care. I want to talk to them. Preferably to one of their shamans or
The worst.
Just make it happen, Franklin.
All right.
This is a scientific inquiry. And you should maybe take the rest of the day off and calm yourself. I did bring a bottle of cognac, if that...
Cognac, I'm afraid of that.
That same evening, a messenger came and invited me to the chieftain's hut of a local tribe deep in the forest. While my guide knew his way, I was lost within the first 10 seconds. There was no path, there was no clear direction, and I wasn't sure if he led me on a purposefully circuitous road just to spin my mind around. But finally we arrived at the village.
Welcome, Signor. You have met my granddaughter already.
Yes, she brought words of warning.
Stay away! We are warding off your spirits.
They will not listen, Nina. These outsiders, they always come. For science, they say. Our people have seen them come and go.
I smell the dankness of the cave upon him. He's a betrayer.
In the years that I have been brujo of this village, I have seen many men come from far away to see our temples, our ruins, and to wonder what is inside. One after the other they come, like lemmings, to their doom. He will not listen. They never listen.
They're stupid.
I saw. I laid eyes on him.
It's the name!
It's just the name.
It is just a name. You do not understand. You can never understand.
Then help me understand. Who? What is it?
You have already been touched. His touch cannot be erased from you. You have stumbled where man was meant to stay out. You have stumbled into a place you were not worthy of. You have offended, and now you must pay. He will exact a price from you.
When he touched my head for the last time, my senses swam, and all was darkness. When I woke up, Franklin was next to me. I had crawled back to camp, not knowing how I reached it.
Professor! What happened? You look like what Professor Hendrickson looked like when he came out of that chamber. So you're right. Here. Take this. Don't be afraid.
I am. There is something we need to do. Please assemble the team, the diggers, the assistants.
I will, but first you must know Professor Hendrickson, he's near death. He wanted to talk to you.
Take me to him immediately.
Certainly.
Franklin had spoken the truth. The professor was barely clinging to life. His face had fallen in. His complexion was waxen and almost white. And I was fearing that any breath will be his last. Henriksen, my old friend, I have seen what you have seen.
You went in. You fool. Why would you go there?
I had to. I had to know, Henriksen, and now I do. The Brujo showed me. I saw what happened eons past, and I will share the knowledge with you. If you can only hold on for a few more moments, you will see. It will all make sense. Henrix, let me help you. You have to be part of it. You discovered it, friend.
You found the same shades of evil before any human being ever lived here.
Vigo.
Yes. Don't say this name. There is a corruption. It is in me, and I see it in you.
It is true, but it is a good corruption. His glory, his splendor is without equal.
You are one of us now.
We will all be one of us soon. And so it happened. The Brujo had taught me what to do.
Professor.
And soon, one assistant after the other was taken by the being that grew bigger and bigger. A shapeless form with too many eyes, too many mouths.
I trust you implicitly.
Too many
Professor, think of the consequences! The consequences!
They're beautiful.
No! You can't!
It is a triumph of science. We have brought something back to life. It was dead for eons. Join us all. Join us. And so, my religious, faithful friends were right after all. There are things you need to experience yourself. There are revelations that defy the scientific minds. There are things that science cannot and will not ever explain. And they are glorious.
The Black Vault. Give yourselves a big round of applause for supporting that. We have one more Saturday night show here next weekend, and then we're done until a special Halloween show on Wednesday night, which is Halloween. So please come back to see our final shows, and come back to the Hideout Theater to see other shows. You can check out hideouttheater.com for the variety of different things you can come and see. We got classes and all sorts of stuff, so come back, have a great time. Thank you very much. Bye.